I haven't slept in 3 days. Not properly. I lie down, close my eyes, but it's like I never leave that hallway. The floor was cold. The air felt heavy, and behind the wall, there was something breathing. Not the kind you can explain. It was steady, slow, like something alive was waiting just beyond the brick. I've tried to forget it, I really have. But every time I shut my eyes, I see her again. My sister. Curled up on the floor of her apartment, barefoot, whispering the same 4 words over and over. Don't let them win. She used to laugh all the time. Loud, reckless, like nothing could touch her. But after she came back from that place, that school, something in her changed. She stopped laughing. She stopped talking, really. And when she did speak, it wasn't her voice anymore. It sounded like fear had wrapped itself around her throat. She said things I didn't understand. That the school had tunnels. That there were rooms you weren't supposed to see. The girls were taken there at night and returned different. She begged me to believe her. But I didn't, not then. Now she's gone. And all I've got left are the pieces she left behind. A torn notebook, pages marked with names and arrows, a few blurry drawings, and one voice note that cut off halfway through a scream. I ignored her for too long. I won't do that again. So I went back. Not as her brother. Not openly. I shaved my beard, changed my name, forged a few documents, and walked in wearing a contractor's badge. They needed someone to check the duct systems. I volunteered. If they recognized me, they didn't say anything. But from the moment I passed through those gates, I knew. She wasn't crazy. Something was very, very wrong with that place. They had me stationed on the east wing, the part of the school she always mentioned, near the chapel. She'd drawn it over and over in her notebook, circling that side like it was some kind of warning. From the outside, nothing looked strange. Neatly trimmed gardens, fresh paint. The smell of incense bleeding through open windows. Everything about it was clean, quiet, and polished. Too quiet, the students walked in silence. Staff didn't make small talk. Even the security guards, 2 at every corner, kept their eyes down, and I found that very awkward. But it was the building itself that disturbed me. The way it swallowed sound. I'd check vents, tap metal, drop tools, and the noise wouldn't carry. It was like the walls were eating it. That kind of silence doesn't come from good insulation. It comes from design. Someone wanted this place to be soundless. I pretended to work, scanning the walls with a thermal reader. But I wasn't looking for heat signatures. I was tracing airflow, drafts, pressure changes, anything that might hint at a hidden passage, and I found it, right where she said it would be, just behind the storage closet near the east stairwell. A vent panel is set low in the wall. Too low, not up to code. It wasn't secured by screws, just snapped in place like it was meant to be opened from time to time. Behind it wasn't ductwork. There was no fan, no filters, no wiring. Just a stone wall, but the stone wasn't smooth. It had lines, not carved, scraped, over and over again. Deep grooves from fingers or tools or something trying to mark its way out. My stomach turned. I wanted to walk away. Tell myself it was old construction, an old maintenance crawl. But I couldn't, not after everything she risked, not after the voice note. So I pushed the panel further. It gave way, quietly, and behind it, an opening. Narrow, sloped, and sinking into the dark. It wasn't part of the blueprint. I checked. It was a tunnel. Not wide, but tall enough to stand. The walls were bare earth, reinforced with old brick and metal plates, like it had been expanded in stages. Some parts looked fresh, others looked 100 years old. The deeper I went, the colder it got. I kept expecting a locked door, a motion sensor, a camera. But there was nothing, just that same silence. The kind that wraps around your ears and makes your own breathing sound too loud. Then I saw a light, faint and flickering. I followed it, slowly. Each step felt heavier. The ground wasn't dirt anymore, it was tile. White, stained in patches. The same kind is used in hospitals. Cleanable, bleachable. My flashlight caught a corner, a folding chair, then another, then a whole row, facing a blank wall. And beside them, On the floor, a pile of what looked like student name tags, broken, scratched out, some bent like they'd been stepped on. That's when I heard it, like two people standing side by side behind the wall. Listening. I didn't run, I should have. But I froze, because just beyond that tiled floor, past the row of chairs, was another hallway. And it was still lit. Someone had been here recently, maybe someone still was. I should have walked away after the funeral, closed the notebook, burned the blueprints, let her rest. But I didn't. I couldn't. The more I sat with her sketches, the more I heard her voice. Not in some ghostly way, not like she was haunting me. No, it was worse than that. It was the memory of how desperate she sounded, how no one, not me, not her friends, not the school, took her seriously. That kind of guilt sticks. It doesn't scream. It just sits in the back of your throat, heavy and dry, waiting for the silence between your breaths. So I made a choice. I started tracing her last days like puzzle pieces. Where she went, who she called, what she wrote. It all came back to that school, that building she once believed in, then grew terrified of. And it came back to that one phrase she scribbled again and again in her notes. East Wing, under the chapel, the draft knows. At first, I didn't know what that meant. Now I do. But back then, all I knew was I had to get inside. Not as a visitor, not as her brother. That would have been shut down in seconds. So I found another way in. I found a small local contractor online. They service schools, banks, even a couple churches. It didn't matter. What mattered was they were always looking for subcontractors to do the work no one else wanted. I slipped in under a false name, got my old boots, tool bag, and certification papers, printed fresh ones. Didn't even need to lie much. I'd worked this kind of job before. Long enough to know where things don't add up in a building. Long enough to walk through the front door like I belonged. They sent the access clearance in one email. Just one. No NDA, no interview. No question about my ID photo. They assigned me to the East Wing. Said I'd be alone and that it was a sealed utility sector, needing airflow readings and internal pipe scans. That morning, I drove out early. Didn't want to be late. Didn't want them watching me arrive. The school sat behind tall hedges and glass gates. Clean, polished, like something carved from a dream. But as soon as the gate shut behind me, I felt it. Not fear, not yet. Just pressure, like I'd stepped into a room where the walls were too close even outside, like the airhead rules. Two men met me at the side entrance. Not security, not staff. No badges, no smiles. One checked my badge. The other stared at my face a second too long. Then they let me in. The East Wing was different from the rest. No natural light, no student artwork, no bulletin boards. Just long, narrow halls and beige floors that echoed every step louder than it should have. There were cameras, small, circular ones tucked in upper corners. I pretended not to notice. But every time I moved, I could feel the heat of a lens shifting behind the wall. I got to work. Or at least, I made it look like I did. Carried a thermal sensor in one hand, clipboard in the other. Logged readings, marked vents, traced airflow with colored tape, all while searching for pressure pockets, cold spots, sealed exits, and something else. I couldn't shake it. The way the walls hummed, not like electronics, more like breathing. A deep, mechanical rhythm behind the drywall. Too low to hear, but just strong enough to feel in your feet. They told me not to talk to anyone. But I saw her, one of the girls, maybe 15. Hair braided tight, uniform spotless. She passed me in the hallway. Didn't speak, didn't blink. But when we crossed paths, her hand brushed my arm for just a second. A small, quiet thing. In her palm, she left something. A folded piece of paper. I waited until I was alone in the utility closet before I opened it. 4 words, scratched in pencil like they were written fast. You shouldn't be here. I kept that paper. Slid it into the back of my notebook. My heart was thudding, but not from fear. From something colder, heavier. Because now I knew someone inside knew what I was doing. And they hadn't stopped me. Which meant they were watching. It started with the vents. Most people never think about them. Those narrow slots above doors and tucked behind cabinets. But I've worked around air systems long enough to know when something doesn't feel right. And at Oprah's school, they were too quiet. Too clean. Air's supposed to move, you feel it, hear it. But these ones stood still. No hum or pull, just cold metal and silence. So I started checking, one by one, marking flow rates, temperature drops, duct pressure. The numbers didn't match the layout I'd been given. A few vents were registering airflow from places that, on the blueprint, didn't exist. One of them? Behind the east stairwell, near the chapel. The same place my sister had circled over and over in her drawings. There was a faint draft, like something breathing through the wall. Not strong, barely there, but it wasn't natural. It came and went in patterns. Long pulls, then stops. Something deep below was turning on and off, controlled. That's when I started digging. I took photos when no one was around. Measured out distances between vent placements. Compared them to the original building specs I'd pulled from the city's public archives. And sure enough, a 23-foot stretch of wall near the east wing had no internal structure, no rooms, no listed pipes, just a gap. One night, just before closing hours, I returned to the corridor. It was empty. Lights dimmed. The same chill hanging in the air like it was waiting for something. I brought a flathead and a fiber scope, just a thin camera wire I could snake behind panels. Nothing that would set off alarms. I found the loose vent, back corner of the wall. No screws, no warning label, just pressure fit. I slid it out slowly. My fingers were shaking. Just that feeling you get when you know the next few seconds are going to change something. Behind the panel wasn't ductwork, it was space. Not much at first, maybe 2 feet of darkness. But then, as I pushed the scope farther, I saw something. Brick. The next morning, I went in early. Before anyone else. I brought a magnetized latch tool, the kind used to slide panels from inside crawl spaces. And when I finally pushed the panel in, inside, I found a narrow passage. The walls were unfinished, a mix of earth and old concrete. Parts of it looked damp. Parts of it smelled like something had died there years ago. And yet, there were footprints. Faint, but real. Scuffed marks along the dust. Some are big, some small. Some looked fresh. I shouldn't have gone in. I knew that. Every part of my body told me to close the panel and walk away. But I didn't, because this was it. The place she died trying to expose. The one thing they'd made sure no student, no visitor, no staff member ever saw. The tunnel was real, and I was standing inside it. The tunnel stretched far deeper than I expected. I thought it would stop after a few feet, maybe open into a crawl space or dead end. But it kept going. Sloped gently downward, like a ramp designed to lead somewhere specific. The deeper I walked, the colder it got. Not freezing. Just cold enough that I could see my breath now and then. I kept my flashlight low. I didn't want the beam to catch anything I wasn't ready to see. The walls were strange, not like a normal basement. They were solid, a mix of brick and earth, patched with metal plates. Some looked old, crumbling at the edges. Others looked newer, cleaner, like someone had been maintaining the space. That's what bothered me. It wasn't abandoned. It was active. I passed a narrow side room, no door, just an opening. Inside, nothing but a folding chair and a floor drain. The tile around it was stained. I didn't step in. Farther down, I noticed scuff marks on the floor. Shoe prints, drag lines, some small, some larger, all heading in one direction. I followed them. Eventually, the floor changed, from dirt to smooth white tile. Cold under my boots. The kind of tile used in hospitals or operating rooms. That was the moment I knew this place was meant to be cleaned. Whatever happened down here, they expected messes. I found another room, bigger than the last. 4 cameras in each corner of the ceiling, quiet, dark lenses watching. In the middle of the room, a square metal table, bolted to the ground. It had padded corners and loops hanging from each side. I didn't go closer. No sound down here. No hum from machines. Just the soft tap of water dripping somewhere far off. I stood still, listening. Then footsteps, slow, careful, not in my tunnel, somewhere nearby. Behind the wall, I turned off my light and held my breath. The steps stopped. Whoever it was, they were close. On the other side of that wall, and they knew exactly where they were going. And that's when I realized this wasn't just one tunnel. It was part of a network, a system. Someone had built this for something, and whatever it was, it hadn't ended. I remember the way the tunnel curved just slightly to the left, and how the walls started to sweat the farther I went. The air didn't feel like the rest of the school anymore. It was thicker, warmer, and it carried a kind of quiet that didn't feel natural, not like silence, but like sound had been taken out of the air on purpose. I reached a dead end, or what looked like one, but there was a door set into the wall, concrete, thick, the same color as the tunnel, so it wouldn't stand out. It had no handle. It was already cracked open. Someone had wedged a broken piece of brick beneath it to keep it from sealing shut. I pushed it open without thinking much, and the second I stepped inside, something in me shifted. The room wasn't big. No light switch, no windows, no cameras. Nothing decorative. Just 4 plain walls and a steel chair in the center, bolted straight into the concrete. The straps on the arms and legs were old and stiff. One of them had been torn off completely and tied back on in a knot. The floor beneath the chair was darker than the rest of the room, stained deep into the surface, like something had been spilled or left there again and again, over a long period of time. I stood there for a while, just taking it in. I didn't want to believe what I was looking at. But the more I studied it, the clearer it became. This wasn't some abandoned storage room or a leftover part of an old building plan. This room was designed to be used. It was clean, empty, and cruel. On the back wall, the paint was chipped, but what stood out were the markings, rows and rows of scratch lines. Some were short and scattered. Others had been made with force, long and straight, dragging down to the floor like someone had been reaching or pulling. It wasn't artwork. It wasn't graffiti. It was fear left behind in pieces. I turned to the corner and saw a low shelf, built directly into the concrete. On top of it were small, personal items. A school ID badge with the face scratched out, a torn uniform sash, a plastic hair clip that looked like something a 13-year-old would wear. They were lined up like someone had taken them from each girl before she was brought in and never returned them. There was no paperwork, no signs, no explanation. But I didn't need one. This school wasn't just teaching obedience. It was enforcing it. The students here came from poverty, many of them from homes with no running water or electricity. Their parents were told they'd been given a chance, handpicked for something greater, lifted from hardship into a world of excellence. That narrative alone gave this place the power to do whatever it wanted. So when a girl didn't fall in line, when she talked back, disobeyed, or just showed a little resistance, there was no discussion. There was just this room. You didn't get a second chance. You got silence. You got a chair. You got stripped of whatever you brought with you, your things, your voice, your right to question anything. It made sense now, all of it, the way my sister had changed. The way her eyes darted around the room, even when no one else was in it. The way she stopped laughing. The way she locked her closet from the outside. She had been here, I was sure of it, and I think some part of her never left. I stood in that room for no more than 2 minutes, but it felt longer. Like the air didn't want me to leave. I turned and walked back through the tunnel, slow and steady, never looking back. My legs were shaking, but I didn't run. Not until I reached the stairwell and heard the panel snap shut behind me, almost like it had closed itself. That night I couldn't eat. I couldn't rest. My sister had tried to warn me. And now that I'd seen it with my own eyes, I understood why she broke the way she did. After I left the tunnel, I couldn't go home. I couldn't sit still. I checked into a cheap hotel on the edge of the city, pulled the curtains closed, and sat in the dark. I didn't talk to anyone. Didn't turn on the TV. Didn't sleep. That room, that chair, the shelf, the scratches in the wall, it followed me. I kept thinking about how many girls had been taken down there. How many cried in silence? How many left that room different than when they entered? At some point during the night, I picked up my phone and scrolled through contacts I hadn't looked at in years. There was one name I kept landing on. A friend, not a close one, not anymore, but someone I knew worked for the FBI now. He was never the type to panic. Always straight, always kept things off the radar. I sent him a message. I didn't explain. Just asked if he had a moment. He called back within the hour. I told him I'd come across something I didn't understand. I didn't give every detail, not right away. Just said it was serious and tied to a school with a lot of eyes on it. When I finally gave the name, the line got quiet. And then I started telling him what I saw. Not just what I saw with my own two eyes, like the tunnel, the room, the straps, the shelf of personal items, and the awkward silence. He let me finish. Then asked me if I had photos. I told him no. He was quiet for a while after that. Then said, not in a cold way, but like someone thinking out loud, "You know who you're talking about, right?" I told him I knew. He said, "Look, I believe you. I do. But you have to understand something. We can't just walk into that place with nothing but your story. Not with that name on the building." I didn't say anything, just sat with it. He wasn't brushing me off. I could hear it in his voice. He was disturbed, but also careful. He told me he'd make a note. Quiet. Nothing official. Just something internal in case anything else ever came in. Then he said, if you can get more, anything that shows faces, names, timestamps, something concrete, I'll take it straight to the top myself. But until then, it's real, but it's not enough. He told me to be careful, to keep my name out of anything. He said, you walked out of a room they never thought anyone would find. That alone might put you in the wrong kind of spotlight. We hung up. I sat there for a long time, holding the phone, thinking about how far I'd come just to end up here, in a room that wasn't mine, holding a truth I couldn't use. The part that stayed with me wasn't that he believed me. It was how little that changed. I don't think this story will go far. That's not me giving up. It's just what I've come to understand. People don't listen when the truth is too heavy and the person it's tied to is too loved. They'll hear the name and stop right there. Oprah. No, can't be. Not her. That's the wall I'm up against. Because what I saw under that school doesn't match the woman people see on stage. The woman with the soft voice, the big smile, the tears on television. She built something they want to believe in. A miracle school. A gift to the continent. And once the world decides a story is beautiful, it stops asking what was buried to build it. So no, I don't think this will break through. And that's the part that eats at me the most. Because while people are clapping, taking photos at the gate, saying how proud they are that Africa has something like this, more girls are walking in. More girls from villages with no roads. More girls with no backup, no name, no voice beyond the one they were told to keep low. They'll walk through those doors and think they've been saved. But if they step out of line, even once, they'll learn the truth. That silence is expected. That obedience is currency. That this school doesn't owe them safety just because it gave them a bed. I saw what happened down there, and now I live with the weight of knowing more will go through it. More will sit in that chair. More will be broken in the name of shaping them into something respectable. All I could do was speak. Whether this reaches anyone, I don't know. But if it does, and you still choose to look away, then you're part of the silence too. If this story meant something to you, even if it just made you think for a moment, go ahead and like the video, share it with someone, and subscribe to the channel. More people need to hear what really happens behind closed doors.